We freaking out a little bit with the mask. Yes. So today we're talking all about, are you still hiding behind the mask? And I brought this out. This is something that my mother-in-law gave me, and I was like, that is both freaky and pretty cool at the same time. But it goes perfectly into what we're talking about today because so many of us keep talking about how we suffer from the imposter syndrome, how we haven't yet let our guard down to be who we really are out in the world. And today I just want to offer up some tips, some tricks, even some personal stories of how I was absolutely hiding behind the mask for so long and how I broke free. And if you're watching Tisha Talks live on Tuesday with my special guest, Kathy Droz, we talked a little bit about this of when do you start to find that confidence shift and when do you start to just get more comfortable with who you are and putting yourself out there, your quirks, your flaws, your imperfections, whatever that is. But hey, for those of you tuning in live today, thanks so much for tuning into this. This is Tisha Talks Live at 4:45. I do this segment every single Tuesday and Thursday. You can see the links there. It's on LinkedIn. It's on YouTube. It's also on my Facebook page. And we do have a comment section. So if you're tuning in live, feel free to drop me a hello or a question, or if this is a topic that you want to chat more about, then feel free to use that chat box. I do look at that while I am doing this live stream, as well as on the replay. So as we get started, I'm going to share a little bit about how I dealt with imposter syndrome, and then offer up some tips if you are feeling like you're still wearing that mask and can't seem to get rid of the mask. So, I've been a business owner since 2004, and I remember always going to different networking events and feeling like I just didn't belong, and I would go to these events and I would be surrounded by all of these high-powered, professional, successful women. And hey, Louise, good to see you joining in on LinkedIn. I would always feel less than. Have you ever felt less than? You go to these different events, you're surrounded by people, and you either feel like you have to hype yourself up or you're just not in the right place. And I would go to these networking events and completely feel that way because I was trying to build a business and I was surrounded by all of these people and definitely felt a little bit like I was out of my element, out of my game. And so when social media really became more prevalent and people were on social media, I really had no idea how I was going to get my message across, how I was going to show up in the world, because I wasn't quite sure who I was yet, what I wanted to put out there. And I did what people do. And I'm going to bring this back out. I hid behind the mask so much. And I had other people who would post for me. So I hired social media managers, and they're like, well, who are you? And what do you want to put out there? I'm like, I have no idea. Put it out there. Go ahead and do what you need to do. And what I found is when people were posting as me or trying to be me, it really wasn't having the effect that I was looking for. I wasn't getting the engagement. I wasn't really getting the type of tribe and community that I was looking for. Hey, a lot of people joining me off LinkedIn. We've got Meredith. Hi, Steve. Raz Mahanim, thank you so much. And Luis, of course, joining me. So thanks, guys, for shooting me a message and saying hello and tuning into this Tisha Talks Live. Great to have you here. And today, you guys know we're talking about, are you still hiding behind the mask? And I was sharing the story with you of my imposter syndrome, my own mask that I wore for several years, because what do we feel when we're hiding behind the mask? We don't want to reveal our true selves. We feel a lot of times inadequate, and we have a lot of self-doubt that we build up too over the years of, am I good enough? Should I be here? And I was absolutely feeling all of that pressure. And I got on LinkedIn. I would say I started actively posting on LinkedIn about 2018, and I decided to test out this theory of just being honest for once. They always say honesty is the best policy. Being real, being your true self is really the way to start ridding yourself of the mask. And I remember the very first post that I wrote on LinkedIn had to do something with, it's the beginning of the year. I have a sinus infection. I feel like death. I'm about to give up. and I need you guys to pull me off the couch and put me back into the real world. And I had so many comments and people sharing that they feel the exact same way, that they've been in my shoes. And it started to dawn on me that we're not on this earth to be perfect human beings. We are on this earth to learn, to fail, to fall, to rise, to get back up. And being our true selves is a part of that. We're not here to just tell the world that everything is just peaches and roses and champagne. That's not at all. What we're trying to do here is just coming out and saying, this is me. This is all of me in my glory, and this is how I am, and love it, like it, hate it. I really don't care. And it took me a while to get to that point in my business and in my relationship to finally say, I'm good. I'm good with who I am. I can always work on myself. I can always be a better version of myself, but I accept who I am. And that really is the first step. The next step I want to share is getting to that point where I really don't care if you like me, love me, or hate me, because I like me. I like me. There was a really great question that a good friend Valerie Lawrence asked me when we were on a podcast. And she said, Tisha, could you spend time with yourself? If you had nobody else around you, could you spend time with yourself? And I said, absolutely, because I really do like me. But there are people that are like, I don't really like me. I don't really know, and that's I think where they're really struggling with the hiding behind the mask, because they really haven't grasped who they are. And they're still dealing with a lot of that self-doubt and those flaws that they're trying to work on. So that's something that I wanted to share with you guys, because sometimes people will look at me and they're like, you're so confident, you're so put together. I'm like, oh, well, there's a story behind that too. I definitely had to deal with the imposter syndrome, with the mask, which, may I say, this looks a little like a kiss mask. But a lot of us have had to deal with the mask that we put on, and how do we remove that mask? How do we start being comfortable with who we are, confident in our own skin, and moving on forward? So I like to share that story just to let you guys know who are listening that I've dealt with it. And if you've dealt with that and you feel comfortable sharing or putting that up on the screen, then more power to you. Yes, even Luis is saying here, absolutely, just be 100% you and stay groovy. I love that. I love his use of groovy. As I shared on Tuesday, he says groovy a lot, and that's how I remember him. Hey, Conrad, good to see you on Facebook. Thanks for joining in as well. So, what do we need to stop doing in order to stop hiding behind the mask? So I'm going to give you a couple more tips. One, we're way too hard on ourselves. We need to really stop that. I know that we're always our worst critic. So we need to stop downplaying ourselves. We have a lot of skills, attributes, qualities about us that we don't even know. And if you don't know those qualities, those cool things that make you you, here's a suggestion. Ask people. Actually, I had a really good friend, Laurel, just ask me the other day, because it's an exercise I have people do. If you can't figure out what makes you cool, unique, groovy, awesome, what those things are, you need to ask the people closest to you, because they will shed light on that for you. You don't have to figure that out on yourself, because we're too close to ourselves sometimes to even know that about us. But asking other people, what do you think about me? And then moving in that direction. Okay, so you're this. Awesome. Do you love it? Do you love what they're saying about you? Great. Then start moving in that direction and be that person. Own that, those qualities that people see in you. The other thing is we have to stop trying to measure up to other people. I shared this a little earlier that Conrad saying, don't be a people pleaser. Yes, absolutely. From a guy that is a people pleaser. Okay, Conrad, we got to change that about you, mister. No more people pleasing. I was that same way too. I shared a little bit earlier in this live stream that when I was in business, I would go to networking events and I felt so out of my element, because I was surrounded by people that had already made it. They were already super successful. They had already done all these big things. But here's what I'm going to say. Again, like we talk about on social media, it a lot of times is what do we call it? The highlight reel, the highlight reel. You see every little accomplishment that I have. You see all the things that I'm doing that's amazing in this world and making a big impact. What you don't see is the real true life story of how hard it was to get there, the sacrifices that I had to make, that perhaps I wasn't happy with myself at one point, or I failed multiple times to get there. So I want you to look at it at that point too, that when you're surrounded by people that you're like, these people are uber successful. How am I in the same room with them? I want you to look at it as people are people. We've all been through a lot of the same struggles and journeys. And so no comparing yourselves to other people. The other thing I want to share with you is stop being a copycat. Remember this, just like Louise said, be 100% you, stay groovy. We are not copycats. We were not born to be copycats of other people. You are your own unique individual self. You've got your own qualities, flaws, quirks, craziness, all of that stuff. And that's what you need to bring to the table. That is what is going to make you you. That is how you are going to absolutely, without a doubt, stand out. And this mask that I keep putting up, this ugly mask, beautiful, ugly mask, that's the time that we can finally say goodbye to it and start showing up 100% us. All right, I want to just put this up. I really like this discussion. Thank you so much, Rasmahanan. Thank you for saying that. This is a discussion that, I really wanted to shed some light on, because we hear a lot of that. I get a lot of people coming to me and saying, how do you just be authentic? How do you just be the real you? How do you stop the imposter syndrome? And the imposter syndrome is something that men and women go through. A lot of us have gone through it. And I'll be the first to admit that I was also going through it for several years of my life, because I didn't want to appear as the girl who was not put together, the girl who had some flaws, the girl who this or whatever, fill in the blank. But here's what I'm going to say. When you start posting and it's real and true to you and what you're going through and the experience and so on, I will say that gets more noticed than the highlight reel. True story. When you're vulnerable and you're transparent and you're like, this is what my day is like and all this, that's what people want to see, because that's when people can actually put themselves in your shoes and in your story and they can see it. All right. They're rooting for you. They're rooting for you, the underdog. They want you to succeed. All right. So I want to give you those tips and tricks. And yes, absolutely. We need to rid ourselves of the masks forever. If you have any questions, or if you want to continue this conversation, my information is up at the top. TishaMarie.com is my website. I want to give another little shameless plug. On February 22nd, I just put this up on my Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn accounts, but I am business mentoring for the Phoenix Business Journal. This is every single year. They host Mentoring Monday, and it's part of this national event that they do all across the country with all the Phoenix Business Journals, or actually I should say all the Business Journal publications, where they are giving free mentoring. And I happen to be one of their 30 mentors. So you can sit in a room with me and get questions answered and talk to me a little bit more about where you're at or where you're struggling. And you get to do that with several other mentors that day. So I will put the link in the comments for anybody interested in jumping on that. It's a free event. It's free and virtual. So that, again, is February 22nd with the Phoenix Business Journal. Conrad, you have something up here. I want to see what you have. You said the Japanese say you have three faces. The first face you show to the world. The second face you show to your close friends and your family. The third face you never show anyone. Wow. That's pretty deep. I think for me, I'm like, oh, to hell with it. I just show you all my faces and you can decide. I will say this, though, that the most liberating feeling is when you get to the point where you really are, again, you like you, you're comfortable with you, you know that you're always going to be a work in progress, but you don't care what other people think about you. When you can get to a point where you're like, I don't really care. Like, I don't really care how many likes I get. I don't really care how many comments I get. I don't really care. I do it for me. I do it because I want to do it, and you do it, and then you get the flood of reactions. It's just a bonus. But I'm not really here thinking, oh my gosh, what if Conrad doesn't like me? Well, Conrad can go to someone else's live stream. But I think Conrad likes me because Conrad shows up to this pretty consistently. So thank you, Conrad, for being here once again on Tisha Talks Live. So I just want to share that with you, that if you're really struggling with, well, what do people think about me, and do they like me? they're not your people. If you have to work so hard to get someone to like you, just they're not your people. There are plenty of other people in the sea that'll like you for you by you being you. All right. So no more trying too hard. No more trying to be a copycat. No more hiding behind the mask. None of that. It's time that we step out and really be true to who we are and be the 100% real you. All right, that's Tisha Talks Live. And I just want to say thanks again for joining me on this Thursday. I do have a special guest coming back next week, Joseph Rosales. He has his book, The Leader of You. And just like Kathy Droz and I talked about leadership on Tuesday, Joseph will be talking about leadership, but in terms of leader of you. So again, putting you, which kind of segues right into this, putting you at the forefront so that you can be able to lead your team, your organization, and all of that much better. So that's how you can find it on Tisha Talks Live on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. And if you're like, this is so cool, I love what you're doing here, and you're like, how do I get to all of the other Tisha Talks Live? Well, lucky for you, I have a YouTube channel, and you can go to that. It's bit.ly/Tisha on YouTube. You can subscribe to that, and there's a whole playlist dedicated to Tisha Talks Live if you'd like to tune in and see more of these segments. But I just want to say thanks so much, guys. It's 5 o'clock. Have a great night. Happy weekend. I will be back next week. And I will catch you back next Tuesday again with my special guest, Joseph Rosales. All right. Bye, guys. Have a good one.